You are watching the video on how to absolutely nail your first round interview. This is Liz, and I'm the co-founder and CEO at WayUp.
I'm going to cater this especially towards first round interviews because sometimes second and third round interviews get really technical and specific about the role. So I'm going to try to keep things high level so that they can apply to everyone watching this. But I do promise you that if you do these 4 things, you're going to be setting yourself up for success with the interview that you are about to start. So first of all, good luck. I know it's interview season right now. It's super high pressure. I've been there, I've done it, and I promise you, once it's over, it's so worth it because you guys are going to get an amazing job or internship. So first of all, you can always come back and get this interview again, watch this interview again by logging into WayUp, and we added a section on the left for webinars. You can click that button, you'll see this video. We also have other videos that we're uploading there. So the last webinar was about how to nail your resume, and now I'm covering interviews. So let's get started. So I actually am all about acronyms because I don't have the best memory in the world. So I'm going to go over the 4 ways to kind of nail your interview, and the acronym I like to use is REAF, R-E-A-F. So when you're going into your next interview, just think of REAF, R-E-A-F. Now it's worth noting that I've probably interviewed 300 or 400 people in the past year because our company's grown a lot. We're 33 people now, which is really exciting. But at the end of the day, if every single person came into this room, because I usually interview in this room, and if every single person came into this room and actually thought about REAF, a lot more people would have done better. So please just think about REAF, R-E-A-F. So let's get into what REAF means. So let's start with R. R stands for research. I'll also just give you a heads up of what the other ones mean. So R stands for research, E stands for enthusiasm, A is for ask, and F is for follow up. So let's start with our research. So there's 3 things that you're going to want to research before your interview. Thing number 1 is the company. Thing number 2 is the actual role that you're interviewing for, if you know what it is, which you usually should. And then thing number 3 is the actual person you're going to be interviewing with. So let's start with the company. And by the way, I'm going to try to give advice that you probably haven't heard before. So just bear with me if you're kind of rolling your eyes right now saying, of course I'm going to research. So researching the company. There's a lot of great ways to research a company. Sometimes we have information on WayUp, especially on our blog, blog.wayup.com, but you can also go to the company's career page. Sometimes if they're a big enough company, they might have a Wikipedia page. I went so far, so my last job was actually at Google, and I remember at Google, I had been interviewing for the internship while a junior at Penn, and I actually read an entire book about Google. So that was my way of researching the company. But when you research the company, here's a secret that I don't think too many people know. You should look for 3 things that you are going to surprise the interviewer about that they probably don't even know. They should be positive things, by the way, or interesting things. But my example was that I was interviewing for a marketing internship at Google. And I remember researching who designed the logo for WayUp. It was for Google, sorry, for Google. And I actually, I read about it in the book. But during the interview, one of the questions was, they asked, what do you think about the branding at Google? And so obviously part of a brand is the logo. And so I mentioned, while talking about why I liked the logo, and this was the old logo, I even mentioned the person who had created the logo, and I used their name. And I remember the interviewer asked, who's that? Like, you just mentioned a name. Who is that? And I actually said, oh, that's the person who designed the Google logo. And they were absolutely taken aback and shocked in a positive way that they actually, that I knew who designed the Google logo. So I cannot say enough that you should make sure that you kind of look up a few things because you're going to show that you've really done your research and you actually care about the company. Next, research the job. So if you're interviewing for a specific role, especially if it's a common role, whether it's an analyst at an investment bank or an APMM at Google, for example, which was what my job is, and I'm sorry if I keep using it as an example, it's what I know best other than my current role, which hopefully none of you guys are trying to interview for. I would say that what you should make sure you do is A, look up people on the career or job page who have actually had that job and look up what projects they've worked on, what they say maybe on their LinkedIn or on their Twitter that they've worked on. You can also look up blogs. So if you find someone, let's say, if you were looking to be an APMM at Google again, and you saw that Liz Bussell was named as one of the APMMs at Google, you could even Google me and then see, even if I'm not your interviewer, and you could look up that I actually have a blog and I've written before about projects I've worked on. So whatever you can do to find information on that actual job and what you'll actually be working on, the better, because then you'll come prepared and you can kind of slide in fun facts about the fact that you really know what's going on with that job. And then finally, you want to research the actual person that you're interviewing with. Now, I will caveat that with the fact that you might not know who you're interviewing with. And if you don't know, then sorry, there's nothing you can do, and you can take off this part of the R. But if you do know who you're interviewing with, and sometimes it's okay to ask, by the way, if, for example, maybe you're being coordinated by, the person talking to you throughout is the HR person or the recruiter or the hiring manager, but you're actually going to be interviewing with maybe one of your colleagues or something like that, what you'll want to do is look up that person. And so looking up their LinkedIn is great. That's their resume, so you'll understand their professional background. But another good place to look is things like their Twitter, or maybe if their Facebook is public, maybe if their Instagram is public, because then you're going to get a little bit more information and insight into who they are. And if you have something in common with them, that is awesome. So a silly example, this is fake again, is if you were interviewing with me, you might see that I am a huge fan of Katy Perry, and you might be a huge fan of Katy Perry, and so you could actually casually mention during the interview, by the way, I was looking on your Twitter, and I don't mean to be weird, but I saw you love Katy Perry. I love Katy Perry as well. Went to a concert of hers last weekend. Obviously, you don't want to seem like a stalker, so don't be extra weird about it, but if you simply show that you did your research, they're going to know that candidate is someone who really wants this job and actually cares. Cool. Let's move on to E. And by the way, if you have any questions, I cannot encourage you enough. Tweet at us at WayUp. You can look on our Instagram and comment on the second to last post, I think it was, which was about this exact event. You can also write on the Google Plus wall. We've had a ton of questions already, so we'll go through all of those. But I'm going to go through live questions after this, so please ask away. Okay, so E is enthusiasm. Now, again, you might be saying, of course I'm going to show that I'm excited about this role, but you would be shocked that the #1 kind of frustration I have about new grads who interview here are that they don't show that they're enthusiastic. In fact, I often see that they're kind of too cool for school or too cool for this job. And to be honest, I don't want you at this company if you're too cool for this company. So you should show that you're really enthusiastic. Some good ways to show that. #1, in your posture. You don't want to be like this. You don't want to be like this. You want to be, excited and smiling throughout. There's no reason for you to be depressed in an interview. Also, when you walk in, you should make comments like, hey, I'm so excited to be meeting you. Thank you so much. When you walk out, you can say things like, I'm so grateful that you took the time. I really love this company, and the fact that you took the time out of your day to meet with me means the world. So again, you don't want to suck up to them or anything like that, but showing that you're super enthusiastic is going to go a really long way. It's funny, I was talking to someone on my team, and they were saying that a lot of the time they don't even remember what they discussed during an interview, but they always remember how they felt during the interview, and how they felt is going to come out of the enthusiasm and kind of the emotions that you show. By the way, as a side note, you probably don't know this, or maybe you do, but people who are interviewing you, unless they're in the HR department, are usually volunteering their own time. And so there's nothing more depressing than when you take time out of your normal role. You probably know that you're going to have to stay at the office late that night to make up for all the work that you missed, just so that you could go back to your alma mater and interview people, or maybe you took the time out to do a virtual interview and the person didn't even want to be there who you were interviewing you. That's the worst. So please, 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 I encourage you, show that you're grateful for their time. Next step is A, ask questions. Please ask questions. The worst answer, so at the end of almost every interview ever, the interviewer will say, okay, so we have 5-10 minutes for questions. Do you have any questions for me? The worst things you can say are either, nope, I don't have any questions, or no, we actually already covered everything. Do not say that. If they covered everything, come up with more questions. But I would actually say, to be honest, that you should prepare 3 questions ahead of time that you specifically know that they're not going to cover during the interview, or there's like a really far chance that they're going to cover them. Let me go over some good questions and bad questions to ask. So bad questions are, when am I going to find out if I got the job? This is your first interview. Like, don't ask that. Even how much money am I going to make on this internship? Again, don't ask that to the interviewer. That's a question for HR, or that's a question for later on. Another bad question that I don't know why, but I think some career service offices might even tell people to ask this, but maybe people translate it in the wrong way. But don't ask the interviewer, okay, so if I were to not get the job, now that you've heard all about me, why do you think that would be? That puts them in a really awkward situation. And in fact, there are some companies out there that tell interviewers, do not answer that question. And so then you're putting them in an extra awkward situation. So instead, if you want to ask questions, some good ones are, I'm curious what keeps you up at night? Or what are the most challenging parts of the role? Or if you want to ask that other question that I mentioned about why you wouldn't get the job, something you could ask is, so you've heard a little bit about me throughout the interview, and I know obviously it's only been 20 minutes, but I'm just curious, where do you think I would have the most kind of opportunity to learn and grow in this role? And that's a good way for them to then tell you, oh, you know, I think you'd be awesome, but it seems like you have very little design experience, so I think that'll be like a really great opportunity for you to get a lot of design experience. Cool. Other great questions, probably my favorite question I get is, what makes the all-stars at your company all-stars? Hopefully, if you're interviewing at a place, you want to be an all-star. To be honest, the fact that you're even watching this and taking the time out of your night, maybe even the fact that you're a WayUp user, I hope you are, that means you're an all-star. So you should want to be an all-star and find out what makes people all-stars. This is also a really good tip, because if you get the job or internship, then you're going to know that's something that I want to do. And also for your next interview, assuming you get to the next round, if someone said, oh, what makes all-stars at my company all-stars are people who ask questions, are super creative, then in your next interview, show that you ask questions, show that you're super creative. You want to be you want to be real, don't get me wrong, but you also want to show them that you can be that all-star at their company. It's also worth noting, by the way, that you want to have a conversation with them. So if you ask them a question and they respond and you find it really interesting what they said and you actually have a response to their response, that's okay. In fact, that's really good. You want them to walk away. I mentioned earlier, they're going to remember how they feel, and you want them to walk away from the conversation saying, I feel like, or from the interview saying, I feel like I had a conversation with that person. They would fit in perfectly here. Cool. Finally, the last one is F, and I think I got 15 minutes for this part, and then I'm going to answer your questions, so we're perfectly on time. So F is follow up. So there are two people that you're going to want to follow up with, assuming that your interviewer is different than the HR person. So I just kind of gave it away, but you're going to want to follow up with the HR person and the interviewer. So word to the wise, follow up over email and follow up within 12 hours. Do not wait 24 hours, follow up within 12 hours. So first of all, how do you even get the business card or the email address? So you probably already have the email address of the person who coordinated your interview, so that's great. That's usually HR or the recruiter. HR, by the way, stands for Human Resources. They also might go under the title recruiter, etc. But the interviewer, during the interview, you can feel free to ask, would you mind if I took a business card? I'd love to follow up with some questions. If you can't, if they say, like, you know what, I actually don't have any business cards on me, you can say something like, okay, I'm just curious, would you mind if I took your email address so I could follow up just to even thank you? Or don't say to thank you, but you could just say, would you mind if I, got your email address so I could follow up if I have any questions? If they still say no, please don't take it personally. Chances are that they're interviewing 50 other people that day, and they just don't want to be swarmed with 50 questions. So what I would say is, let's say you get both email addresses, and now it's time to follow up. How do you follow up? Great. So there's two types of email. So first of all, you want it to be short. I would say never more than like 5 or so sentences, and you want to remind them who you are, especially the interviewer, ideally by alluding to something you guys talked about that was specific. So with the interviewer, I would say something like, let's say, the interviewer's name is Liz and your name is Bob. So, dear Liz, I just wanted to thank you so much again for taking the time to meet with me. I know how busy you are, and I'm just so grateful, especially because of how much I love and admire Google. I really am hoping, I really want to say again how much I enjoyed hearing about your experience as an APMM at Google, especially working on the Oscars partnership campaign. Please let me know if you need any further information from me. Otherwise, I hope you have a great rest of March and hope to speak to you again soon. All the best, Bob. P.S. Katy Perry concert next weekend, just scored tickets, can't wait. Or something that will make them kind of smile at the end. And you can even feel free to do a smiley face if you find it appropriate. Maybe not in all situations, but something that's a little wink wink and a little like nod to, you know me. Okay, so now for the HR person. You probably didn't have that same really close connection with them, so it's okay to be a little more formal there and say, dear, let's say the HR person's name is Michelle. Dear Michelle, I just wanted to thank you so much again for taking the time to, coordinate my interview with Liz. I enjoyed it so much, and it really helped me confirm how much I want to work at Google. If you need any further information from me at all, please let me know. All the best, Bob. So, by the way, a good question you probably are asking yourself is, well, what if I don't hear back? So first of all, you shouldn't assume that you're necessarily going to hear back from those emails, and if you don't worry, that doesn't mean you didn't get the job. They probably read your email, and there are weird Chrome extensions that you can download to even see if they opened your email. Don't freak out about that. What I will say is, if you don't hear back within a day or 2 days, don't worry. You're probably not going to hear back on whether you got the job, especially if you're looking for a big corporation. I remember at Google, I think I waited like 2 or 3 months from when I interviewed, let alone 5 months from when I submitted my application. But it is worth noting that if the HR person says, you're going to find out by the end of March, we'll let you know, we'll contact you, and you still don't hear back, it's okay on April 1st to send an email to the HR person saying something like, hi, Michelle. I hope you're doing well. I just was curious about the status of my application. I want to confirm, reaffirm how excited I am about this role and how much I love this company and would love to work with you. So one thing to note is that you're going to want to remind her who you are. So I even suggest replying to your original email, that follow-up thank you email, with this email so that they really understand who you are and can connect the dots. So I think that is it, and I'm 2 minutes over, and I apologize, but you guys have probably heard of a girl named Nikki. So Nikki works with me, and she's actually the person who sends all the emails to you guys about jobs, etc. And she's going to help me. Hey guys. She's going to help me with figuring out what questions you guys are submitting. So again, you can feel free to tweet at us, it's at WayUp, or post on Instagram, comment with any questions. And you guys already sent in some really amazing questions, so we're going to cover those first. And by the way, how cool is this like Logitech camera thing? It's really futuristic, so cool. All right, I'm going to go right into it.
Awesome. Well, your first question is from Callan, and Callan wants to know how to answer the infamous, so tell me about yourself, in a strong, concise fashion.
Okay, that's a great question. So, Callan, thank you for that. So tell me about yourself is probably, for anyone who's never been on an interview before, it tends to be the first interview question for 90% of interviews I've ever heard of. It sounds silly, but they want you to tell them about yourself. I know it's a novel concept. Try to keep this to no more than 30 to 45 seconds. That's usually my rule for most interview questions, unless it's like a case study or a technical question. Try to keep it to 30 to 45 seconds. And honestly, what if you were kind of like writing your biography and you were to summarize it in just a couple sentences, what would that be? So for me in college, I would have probably said, yeah, so I am originally from New York City. I'm now a junior at Penn. I'm studying math, political science, and Japanese. I'm also taking some computer science classes, which I absolutely love. But really, I've become very interested over the past few months in entrepreneurship. I'm always interested in technology. I've been kind of like a dweeb about things like your company and Apple, etc. for a long time. I read about it on my free time, etc. And so now I'm looking for an internship this summer where I can really hone my creative marketing and entrepreneurial skills while also working at a strong technology company. I'm kind of obsessed with Google, but I'm sure we'll get into that, so I'll talk about that later. So something like that where you show a little bit about your enthusiasm about the company, but you're also talking about you. By the way, we have a blog post on that. It's really good, and we have videos of different sample questions. So blog.wayup.com. It's a really good blog post, so feel free to go there. I think we also posted it on the Google Plus wall.
Absolutely. And just a quick tip, something I used to do when I was in school, I would time myself in the mirror answering the questions.
Oh, that's awesome.
And make sure that I was under 2 minutes and that I had it down pat. Of course, you don't want to sound scripted, but it's a great way to make sure that you're being concise and informative.
Yeah. Whatever you do, don't just say, I'm a junior and I study math. That's boring. So do probably hundreds of other people. So talk a little bit about you.
So we just talked about the beginning of the interview, but Hu Yen had a great question about the end of the interview, and you kind of went over it, but what is your favorite question that you get asked at the end?
Ooh, I really like when people ask me, you know, who are what makes an all-star at your company. I like when people ask me what keeps me up at night, because that shows me that they actually care about the challenges at my company. I would say I really like, so a really hard question for me to answer is, so what's an average day like for you? But often that's a really good question for both sides, because it makes the employer, especially if they like their job, they're going to like talking about their job. You want them to smile, but it's also going to be informative for you so you can hear about what their days are like.
Awesome. Here's a question about attire from Xiaoya. What are your thoughts on wearing a bow tie or a colorful red suit to your interview? You know, you'll definitely stand out and be remembered. What do you think about that?
Okay, Xiaoya, listening?
I think so. Yeah.
That's an awesome question, Xiaoya. So I would say, you know, if you're interviewing at a funeral home, I can just tell you right now, don't wear a rainbow bow tie. But what I would say is, you should look up the company, look up, maybe it's their social media handles, like their Snapchat or Instagram, look up their career page or their YouTube channel, and you can see, usually there will be pictures of employees. It's pretty often that they'll include pictures or videos of employees, and you can see how people dress. You want to dress slightly more formal than them. You never want to be less formal than them, but I would say you are awesome. Like, trust me, whoever you are watching this, you are awesome, and and you don't want them to walk away from the interview remembering you for your bow tie. You want them to walk away remembering you for you. And so I would say, like, maybe be on the more cautious side, and wearing a rainbow suit and rainbow bow tie might be a little bit much. I get that you want to, you know, attract attention and stand out, but you should better stand out for your answers, your interviewing skills, and your REAF. But I don't know that you want to stand out for your tuxedo, unless you're interviewing at a fashion company.
Yeah, be yourself. So Veronica and Remy both had similar questions, so we'll just put them into one. What are some great responses to what are your strengths or weaknesses, or as Veronica put it, when you're asked about negative or positive attributes about myself?
That is another question that shows up all the time. So, and people will find ways to ask it in different ways, but usually it's just a different version of, so what are your strengths and weaknesses? So for strengths, I would actually recommend before you have an interview, you should ask a few of your friends. We were friends in college, and we actually would ask all of our friends before interviews, what is it about me that's like awesome? What do you think my strengths are? If you could describe me in one word, what would you say? And often that's going to be really good. I also, by the way, would think about the role that you're interviewing for. And again, you never want to lie. You want to be true to who you are. But if the role is something that requires a lot of creativity, and you have a bunch of strengths and one of them is creativity, I would definitely mention that strength. So, you know, you want to also make sure that they know you're right for the role and you're strong for the role. For what are your weaknesses, the worst answer you could give, and I am so guilty of having given this once or twice in college, is I work a lot. I work so much and I'm just so diligent. That's not a weakness. Like, no one is buying it. It's not a weakness, so don't pretend it is. What I would say is try to think about places that you haven't been the strongest in your past, but that you have examples where you've been working towards getting better. So, for example, you might want to say something like, you know what, I've found that I actually pay too much attention to detail, and at times it's slowed me down a lot, and I've had to kind of get my head out of the nitty-gritty and say, you know what, I need to make sure that I meet my deadlines, etc. An example of a time when this actually happened was recently on a project, and you can talk about how you started getting really, really into the details and the nitty-gritty, and then all of a sudden you realize you were about to miss the deadline, and so you immediately solved everything. So show that you're actually self-aware and that you're working on solving your problems.
Great. I used to, and when I was in school interviewing for my first job in a position that many of you are in, I would ask professors that I had in small classes so they really could know me about, somebody who has seen me in more of a professional environment. Where do you think I really excel, or where do you think I can actually work on? And bringing real life examples to the table always helps.
Totally agreed.
Awesome. So this next question is from Kelly. When pausing to think about a response to a question, how long is too long of a pause?
Was that uncomfortable? You don't want to make them uncomfortable. You don't want to be uncomfortable yourself. That was weird. So, okay, that's a great question. Let me answer it by quickly saying like 1 to 2 seconds. And by the way, what I just did is answered your question. The worst thing you can do during the interview is not know the answer to a question and then try to answer it by not answering it and just changing subject. Don't do that. So I'm going to answer your question and say don't wait more than like 2, at most 3 seconds, but even 3 seconds is a little stretching it. However, here are things you can do to buy yourself time. First of all, you can say, that's a great question. Would you mind if I just clarified it, because I want to make sure I understand what your question is. So are you asking blah, blah, blah? And so just repeat it back to them. There's even a small chance that you didn't understand the question, and that's why you need more time. But just it also just buys you a little bit of time. Another great way to kind of buy some time is by saying, that's a great question. I actually, have thought a lot about that recently. Maybe if that was like your weaknesses question. And so you could just kind of make a little comment, and that will buy you 1 or 2 seconds. But otherwise, they want to see that you're being real and true. And if you're spending more than a few seconds, then it might not be the best thing. It is worth noting, you should always feel free to ask questions. If for some reason you're taking a long time to answer because it's a really hard question, just feel free to ask questions back.
Awesome. So we have a few more minutes. Let's get a few more of these in. And Julia wants to know, are there such things as trick questions?
Ooh. So yes, there are. I'll give you an example actually with Nikki. So when Nikki was interviewing for someone on her team who would be a marketing manager specifically focused on digital ads, the project that she gave them was to look at a whole sequence of numbers and come up with a budget based on the numbers. And what they had to figure out during the interview was that there was a whole section of numbers missing, and that they couldn't actually come up with a real budget unless they realized that section was missing. And so that's a little bit of a trick question to show, do you really know your stuff? I would say most of the time it's safe to assume they're probably not asking you a trick question. I think there's a few companies out there that do it. Google has been known to do it. A few companies have. But to be totally honest, I would say there's a decent chance they're not asking you a trick question, and either you misunderstand it or you're being a little paranoid and you just need to take a breath, drink a little bit of water, and relax and think about it again. You can always ask the question back to them again just to, A, buy yourself a little bit of time, but B, make sure that they're actually asking the right thing.
Great. So I'm going to ask a few more questions, but if you guys have any burning questions, please feel free to tweet at us at WayUp, comment on our Instagram post at WayUp, talk to us on Facebook or on the Google Plus Hangout page. We will be sure that we answer everything, whether it's on the air or we'll respond back to you directly.
Yeah.
So don't be shy. And another question from Mandy. She wants to know greeting etiquette. So, when should she stand up? When should she sit down? What kind of eye contact should she make? And I think this is something that a lot of people have questions about.
Absolutely. So first of all, first impressions mean a lot. So when you walk into the interview, you want to be smiling, have good posture. There's no reason your interview should be like this. It's just kind of weird. But I would say follow the interviewer's lead. So if they're standing up, you should stand up, shake their hand, show that you're confident and that you're really enthusiastic about being there with them. And then when they sit down, you should sit down. So just follow their lead. The most awkward thing ever is if I was standing up and she was sitting down and we were having a whole interview like that.
Awesome. So we have a question from Samantha Kelly, who's actually a campus rep.
Oh, hey Samantha. Thanks for being a campus rep for WayUp.
She wants to know how to deal with the lack of formal education for a position that you're otherwise qualified for.
Okay, so what do you think that?
So she means that a lot of companies, not companies on WayUp, because all companies on WayUp know that they're getting recent grads. Maybe they have an entry-level position.
I see.
And they have some requirements for education. How do you prove to that interviewer that you're right for the role?
So honestly, I mean, you definitely want to over-prepare. Again, the R in REAF is research, so you really want to research the role and the company. And I would just say in that interview, like, not in an uncomfortable way, but you want to make sure that you are so qualified and you want to spit information at them that will show that you know your stuff. So, for example, if they ask a case study and the case study involves the company that you're actually interviewing with, showing that you've done your research on the market size or whatever it might be, you've really thought through some of the problems before, that'll really show that you really know your stuff. I would also say that even though you guys are college students or master's students, whatever you might be, and you might, for example, not have any full-time experience, maybe you've never taken a year off and you're an undergrad, it's okay to also say that you have experience from past internships, past part-time jobs. If you don't have a part-time job or internship, go to WayUp. It's really easy. I'm not just trying to plug us. I'm really saying, like, you should try to get some experience, and you can always pull in experiences from there. Even if it's a little bit of a stretch, I'm sure there's a way you can find trying to get that kind of experience in your current job.
Yeah, I totally agree. I just encourage you to kind of be brave and go for it. Show, do some extra work. Show them that you're right for that position. You can always convince somebody with the right amount of work.
Yeah.
And I think we have time for one more
question.
Exactly. We have time for one more question. So this one just came in from Ariel. If you're being interviewed by a panel, how do you follow up in a unique way to each of the interviewers?
Ooh, that's a good one. That's a great one. So I'm going to assume that you have each of their business cards. What I would do is I would research each one of them afterwards. Again, I'm going to assume that you don't necessarily know all of them beforehand, but you met all of them. So first of all, the second you leave that interview, take out your iPhone or your Android or whatever phone you have and immediately write a note to yourself about, okay, I need to remember to that Michelle on the left said something about Katy Perry, and we bonded over that. Liz in the middle asked a really great question about specifically what I think about the most recent commercial that Google came out with. And Mike on the right asked this amazing question about X. So if you write those things down, you can always follow up and call those out in the follow-up email. That being said, you could also always look them up after, like maybe none of them spoke and just one person spoke. It's okay to have a similar email. You should make sure you customize it a little bit, like dear name, and send them separately. But another thought is that you could also just kind of look them up online and see afterwards if there was anything interesting about them that you just wanted to call out or even ask about.
Yeah, one thing to add to that, if you're interviewing with multiple people, a really great trick is to, when you're responding to them, include their first name. People really respond well to that. So in the beginning, when you meet everyone, make a note to repeat their first name or whatever trick you use to remember people's names. And while you're answering, say, well, Mike, that's a really great question. I'm glad you asked. And it feels more personal that way.
And it shows confidence.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I think we are up for time. It is now 9:03, so we went 3 minutes over. I apologize, but thank you guys so much for taking the time to join this webinar. We're going to be doing a ton more of these, so all I ask is that if you have more requests for different types of webinars, maybe it's interviews in a specific industry, or how to do X, or how to say Y during an interview, whatever it might be, please tweet at us. You can comment on our Instagram. You can write on our Facebook wall, whatever you want. Just let us know, because we want to create content that you guys want to watch, read, etc. So also go to blog.wayup.com. I cannot tell you enough. I have been learning awesome interviewing tips, even from the other side of the table. I'm not interviewing for other jobs, don't worry. And so I can't recommend enough checking out blog.wayup.com. We come out with like 1 or 2 articles every day, so we're going to be doubling that now, so check it out. Anything else to add?
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys. Take care. Good luck on your interviews. You're going to rock it.
And let us know how you do. We want to hear.